Warning, the following video does not condone illegal drug use of any kind. All portrayals of smoking on screen are with substances that are legal in all 50 states, contain no psychoactive ingredients, and are only used for comedic effect. Other than that, your body, your business. Thank you, and on with the show. Let's talk about the war on drugs. In the United States, every first lady has had their pet issue that they focused on while their husbands were in office. Lady Bird Johnson focused on environmentalism. Both Barbara and Laura Bush focused on child literacy. Michelle Obama focused on child obesity. Eleanor Roosevelt, sheesh, where do you start with her? Even Melania Trump got in on this, focusing on cyberbullying. Probably could have done a little bit more work there, Mel. And Nancy Reagan focused on drug addiction. In 1982, Nancy Reagan launched the Just Say No campaign in hopes of better addressing drug use and peer pressure amongst America's youth. Nancy traveled all across the country, visiting rehab centers, doing numerous TV appearances, enlisting the Girl Scouts of America to help, even appearing in a music video titled Stop the Madness with various celebrities. This would also coincide with the creation of Drug Abuse Resistance Education in 1983, better known as DARE. Through the DARE program, school districts and local law enforcement would work together to educate children on drugs, alcohol, and offer ways to fight back against peer pressure. Also, they had a lot of lessons discouraging graffiti and tattoos. Happy to be part of the problem, folks. And then there was that one time that Nancy Reagan appeared on Different Strokes.
Now the world don't move to the beat of just one drum.
Honest question. Does anyone under the age of 40 remember Different Strokes? I mean, I'm sure people are familiar with stuff about Different Strokes. We'll get to that, trust me. But does anyone remember anything about the show itself? You know, besides this?
What you talking about, Willis?
Well, in case you don't, Different Strokes was a family sitcom that aired for 8 seasons between 1978 and 1986. The series starred Gary Coleman and Todd Bridges as Arnold and Willis Jackson, 2 brothers from Harlem who are taken in by a wealthy Park Avenue white family after their mother passes away. This family featured Mr. Drummond, played by Conrad Bain, and his daughter, Kimberly, played by Dana Plato. And yada yada yada, shenanigans ensue. The show was very popular amongst family audiences, so I'm sure Mrs. Reagan and her advisors thought this would be the perfect place to promote Just Say No. Because if there's one thing Different Strokes loved to do, it was very special episodes. Nowadays, we all rightfully chuckle at the phrase very special episode, but trust me, Different Strokes took the trope to ridiculous new heights. This show had no chill. There was a deficit of chill in the writer's room for Different Strokes. The creators of Degrassi were telling them to take it down a notch. Nancy Reagan appeared in the penultimate episode of the 5th season. During that same season, we had episodes that featured, among other things, Willis buying a gun on school grounds, Willis's friend getting killed in a drunk driving accident, the family getting robbed by Santa Claus, and the infamous Bicycle Man 2-parter.
Hey! That mouse just lost his pants!
We open on another morning in the Drummond household, where Arnold plans to enter a contest reporting on different aspects of life at his school.
All us reporters on school newspapers get to submit a story, and the best story in the city gets published. The first prize is you get to be editor of the Tribune for a day.
Well, Arnold, we're all rooting for you. We know you're gonna have the best story at your school.
I hope so. I just gotta beat that snob Lisa. She's always putting me down at school and bragging about how she wins at everything. And she does.
Yes, folks, don't do well in school so you can enrich the lives of your classmates or get good grades. Do well in school so you can show that little bitch Lisa who's the boss. Thrive out of spite!
Why don't you write one of those sensational kinds of stories you read in those gossip magazines? You know, lady spends weekend with man from outer space. Refuses to go back to husband.
Ooh, I got a juicy piece of gossip. How about former child star arrested for armed robbery? Why are you all looking at me like that?
Write about something important and make it the truth. That's how you become a great reporter, like Woodward and Bernstein did.
And when they make that movie about my life, Robert Redford can play that part too.
And in 30 years, people can complain about it on Twitter. Yeah, I know what it's called now. I'm not calling it that. Man, I really need to learn how to type.
Look at all these ideas I've thrown away. If I don't have something by tomorrow, Lisa'll never let me live it down.
Damn you, Lisa. When will your lust for blood be satisfied?
Well, let's see what else we got here. Bedwetting, and you look at the trickle-down theory.
Okay, so at least one writer on the staff was a Democrat.
The Boston Tea Party is one of the most colorful and exciting events in American history, and Arnold Jackson is asleep.
Hey, what you talking about, baby? Ah!
dead. Lisa's gonna stick my nose in it again.
Lisa!
Hey, I've got something that'll help. If you want to stay awake, this will really send you into overdrive.
Those are drugs. Those things will scramble your brain. Yeah, by the time you're 16, you'll be a burnt-out junkie.
You could end up broke and having to work as a mall security guard. Why are you all looking at me like that? Sensing an opportunity for his story, Arnold asked to meet with Robbie's supplier and get proof that drugs are being sold on campus.
Yeah, let's keep our eyes open for any suspicious-looking characters.
Hi.
Whoa, hold on. I'm not buying drugs from somebody with a bowl cut. You gotta have some standards.
Look, what kind of pills do you want? I don't have a lot of time. I gotta go to the bathroom.
My trickle-down theory is about to be trickle-down fact if you catch my drift.
I got red devils, yellow jackets, and goofballs.
What do the red ones and the yellow ones do?
Well, one takes you up, and the other brings you down.
Yo, baby, I got uppers, downers, stuff that makes you feel alright, stuff that makes you feel kinda okay. I got Xannies, Perkies, Bennies, Molly, Oxy China Girl, couple of bottles of lean. I'm even growing some diesel out back if you're in a pinch. Won't lie, there's some seeds in it, but it'll do the job. So what you want? Arnold submits his report, but earns the ire of the school principal, who doesn't believe him and accuses him of making the whole thing up.
I have no reason to believe any of this.
Mr. Langford,
There's no way I'm going to submit this to the Tribune.
Yes, a school principal in 1980s New York is shocked that his students are using drugs. Arnold decides he isn't going to take this lying down, so he submits his story to the actual newspaper, making page 9 the very next morning.
Arnold Jackson, a 6th grade student at PS 406, has written a story entitled, "My School is Lousy with Drugs."
When asked for comment, Mr. Jackson stated for the record, Arnold rules, Lisa drools.
Arnold, how do you know that there are drugs in the school? Now, according to this, your principal, Mr. Langford, says that you're making the whole thing up.
Again, this is New York City in the 1980s. Why are people acting so surprised about this? My god, according to this headline, drugs exist. Fucking duh! Mr. Drummond wants to know how Arnold became aware that drugs were being sold at school, but Arnold doesn't want to snitch on his friends.
Dad, blowing the whistle on a friend is the lowest thing you can do.
I don't agree. We're talking about drugs here.
And if we ask them nicely about it, they might hook us up with the good shit. But before they can resolve the issue, a special visitor decides to drop on by. Just kidding. Actually, real talk, listen closely when they open the door. It's like the studio audience isn't sure whether they should applaud or not.
Mr. Drummond?
That's right.
Kinda sums up the whole Reagan legacy, doesn't it? But yes, it's Nancy herself. Turns out she was in town, read Arnold's story in the paper, and decided to meet with him and the family.
You know, I'm very concerned about drug abuse, especially among the young, and I was very impressed.
This whole plot is completely contrived and ridiculous. Oh, not the bit with the newspaper, I mean Nancy Reagan helping a black person. And turns out it's a small world, because Nancy is old friends with Mrs. Gallagher, the family's housekeeper.
I'm so glad to see you. The last time was, let's see, at the barbecue in Washington.
And the ribs were overdone.
No. The last time we saw each other in Washington, they said, "Who's that lady with Pearl Gallagher?"
We had such crazy times. Remember when we went skinny dipping with Ollie North and the Ayatollah? Pearl! Shh! Fun fact, according to Todd Bridges, members of the Secret Service dressed in plain clothes and sat in the studio audience. And apparently they laughed super loud whenever Nancy said something. Wonder what they thought with this bit when Ronnie calls from the White House.
Miss you. Love you. Now, if I can say it in front of strangers, you can say it in front of Tip O'Neill.
Oh, Noriega's there too? Give him my love. Gotta go. Anyway, Arnold and Nancy show up at his school to set the record straight.
How do you feel about drugs?
Well, I think drugs are disgusting and I'd never take them. My name is Lisa and I'm a Republican.
Candace Owens, the early years.
Thank you, Lisa. I have a hunch the Democrats are against drugs, too.
It depends on whether they inhale or not.
Has anyone ever tried to sell you children drugs? This is something that could really affect your whole future.
Am I the only one who thought that sounded like a threat? We have ways of making you talk! Anyway, Arnold's classmates share their experiences, and it finally gets through the principal's head that drugs exist.
Thanks for not snitching on me, Arnold. And thanks for getting me off the hook, Robbie.
I'm so proud of all of you. And I know you won't forget any of the things that we said here today.
Oh, I'm sorry. I already forgot what we were talking about. Is it lunchtime yet?
Miss Reagan, can I please shake your hand?
Of course you may.
Me too!
Phew, poor people. Guys, have the disinfectant ready. Actually, weird question. What happened with the contest? This whole thing kicked off because Arnold wanted to be the editor of the Tribune for a day. So, did he win? It's hard to top getting the First Lady to corroborate your story. Wonder what that day was like for him. Alright everyone, let's get our front page headline ready. Lisa sucks. Good work, let's break for lunch. In 1984, Ronald Reagan would sign the Comprehensive Crime Control Act, which included much harsher penalties for the possession and cultivation of cannabis. In 1986, he and Congress would up the ante with the Anti-Drug Abuse Act, which introduced mandatory minimum sentences for possession of drugs, including 5 years without parole if you were caught possessing crack cocaine. As a result, the amount of low-income black prisoners in federal lockdown would skyrocket, with white drug offenders receiving significantly lighter sentences. In 2001, the ACLU even started calling the drug war the new Jim Crow. With billions being put into law enforcement and addiction treatment receiving way less funding, it seemed like all the drug war did was bolster the prison industrial complex. While the drug war as we know it was codified with the Reagans, it was really kicked off by Richard Nixon when he oversaw the creation of the DEA. In 1994, John Ehrlichman, one of Nixon's domestic policy advisors, said that jailing black people and dissidents like this was always the plan, even if they didn't just come out and say it at the time. And while many from the Nixon administration would deny this, it doesn't change the fact that this was the ultimate outcome. As for DARE, scientific studies commissioned as early as the 1990s found that the program was ineffective at best and harmful at worst, with children who participated in the program being more likely to use drugs instead of less, since it exposed students to knowledge of controlled substances that they wouldn't have possessed otherwise. In the 2000s, DARE would receive significantly less funding, and as cannabis legalization became a bigger discussion nationwide, new lessons would focus less on drugs specifically and more on good decision-making. And to this day, DARE merchandise is worn by stoners as an ironic joke. In hindsight, the Just Say No campaign is considered a failure, with studies showing that rates of drug use amongst young people more or less stayed the same during the years it was active. The reason Just Say No failed is the same reason that Prohibition failed in the 1920s. It treated addiction as a moral failing as opposed to a public health issue. To paraphrase Bill Hicks, it didn't offer compassion, only condemnation. The ending of this episode is only interested in who was doing drugs at Arnold's school. Not once did they ask why kids had turned to drugs. But that would open up a lot of questions about their friends, their families, and their community at large. So many anti-drug ads were hyperbolic and over the top. There were even ads run after 9/11 saying that if you smoked marijuana, you were supporting terrorism. It turned the drug war into a matter of good versus evil when it just wasn't that simple, because it's a problem anybody could have. Remember that music video for Stop the Madness that I mentioned earlier? The one with all the celebrities? You know who I was shocked to see? Whitney Houston and Bobby Brown. Sheesh, is that harsher in hindsight. Hell, look no further than Different Strokes itself. Earlier, I asked if any of you remember anything about Different Strokes. I asked that because, at this point, Different Strokes might be more famous for what went on behind the camera as opposed to in front of it. At the time I'm making this video, you can't find Different Strokes on any streaming services in the United States. But over the years, various exposés have painted a very grim picture as to what the show was like behind the scenes. The kind of stuff that shows like BoJack Horseman would later satirize really happened on the set of Different Strokes. In 1989, Gary Coleman would sue his parents and business advisors for stealing from his trust fund, and a decade later he'd file for bankruptcy. He also struggled on and off with prescription drugs, and at one time was so broke he worked as a security guard at a California shopping mall. In 1984, Dana Plano got pregnant by her boyfriend and was written out of the show, making only sporadic appearances for the last 2 seasons. Afterwards, she had her money embezzled by her accountant, lived in a motorhome, posed for Playboy, starred in a series of erotic B movies, plus Night Trap, got arrested for armed robbery, and ultimately died of an overdose in 1999. Just one day before, she had appeared on the Howard Stern show and insisted that she was sober. Todd Bridges is thankfully still with us, but he also struggled with various addictions and arrests over the years, along with being taken advantage of by a former publicist. Remember I mentioned that episode where Willis brought a gun to school? Yeah, a year after that episode aired, Bridges also got arrested in real life for carrying a concealed weapon. Nobody was protecting these kids. Not the producers of the show, not their parents, and they sure as shit weren't protected by Nancy Reagan and her insincere sloganeering. Richard Evans, a sociology professor whose research formed the inspiration for these kind of campaigns, had this to say: "The Just Say No approach has been taken out of context and redirected as a formula for preventing all substance abuse. Because of the current pervasiveness of the catchphrase, we must emphasize that just say no is not enough." And he was right. Not to downplay anything, but the drug war made it seem like alcohol, cigarettes, marijuana, and tattoos were just as bad as crack cocaine, heroin, and meth. All you have to do to break anti-drug conditioning is show one person getting high and they didn't turn into a criminal, a terrorist, or an addict. Thanks for watching. I got red pills, blue pills, purple hearts. I got chicken powder, French mistakes, dope for the road, dope for home, electric Kool-Aid, regular Kool-Aid. I got Big Chief, alien sex fiend, sex type things, interstate love songs, blood sugar, sex magic. I got Brain Freeze, Detroit Pink, Blue Cheer, Hoboken Chartreuse, and my personal favorite, Arabian Crime, cause it gets you so stoned. I'm reading this off the DEA website. I only made some of those up. Who thinks of this? Jesus.